Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good day. Browns, they're off for the next month or so. They will reconvene in Berea and then head to the Greenbrier, July 22nd for rookies, July 23rd for the veterans. Of course, topic of conversation until then likely to be Amari Cooper, what the Browns are able to get done contract-wise. Browns general manager Andrew Berry was asked about Amari Cooper and the contract situation. NFL Network's The Insiders.
I'll say first and foremost, Judy, it's a standard practice for me where I don't comment on contract specifics or discussions that we have in our players in this realm, just because I do think it's a pretty deeply personal manner for really anybody when you're talking about compensation. What I will say about Amari, though, is since he's been a member of the Cleveland Browns, he's obviously been a high-level Pro Bowl caliber receiver, but he's also a great teammate and he's a great professional. And we're happy to have him as a member of the organization. Sometimes, all teams will have periods where they go through these type of situations, but it does not change our affinity for Amari. We'll navigate, call it the business considerations and the business aspects as it goes. But he is a big part of our team, and just as importantly, he's a big part of our culture.
And that beginning part of it was yesterday was Amari Cooper's 30th birthday. So that was the beginning graphic. Let's welcome him in, Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, I know you've talked about this, you've heard about this, and it's an important thing for the Browns. But Andrew Berry's being honest, I believe, when he says what he says about Amari Cooper.
Well, he's basically saying, and I've been writing this, that they really feel wonderful about Amari Cooper. They love him. They want him to be a part of this football team. They know he's important to DeShaun Watson and his success this season. They just have to agree on the number. They have to agree on the guaranteed money in the contract, the length of the contract. They have things that they have to work through. And I think they should be able to work through those things. I think Amari Cooper is worth it. Just because they went out and got Jerry Jeudy, I don't think that means that it's time to give up on Amari Cooper this year. I think they can afford him. I don't think that it would be that hard to agree on a number. And I think they should do whatever they can to do it. I mean, maybe somebody else is out there willing to pay a 30-year-old receiver north of $30 million a year. Maybe Amari wants to go see if he can get that somewhere else. But as of right now, I think the Browns are going to make every attempt to make sure that he's on the Cleveland Browns for next season.
So I know you mentioned you've written about us. You said this. There's a couple of Hey Mary Kays I'm curious about. What do you think is a reasonable price for the Browns to pay for Amari Cooper, given his age? Again, he just turned 30 yesterday. And do you think they should consider anything more than 2 years as an extension?
No, I don't think so. I think 2 years is a reasonable amount. I would do a 2-year deal worth somewhere in the neighborhood of about $26 million a year. I would give him some good upfront guaranteed money. I would lower the first year base to about $1.2 million. I would spread the contract out over about 4 years with 2 void years. And I would call it a day, shake hands, and have him into camp.
Yeah, and again, the thought was that at 30 years old, you want some guaranteed money. So, again, I'm going to get into another one of your Hey Mary Kays, rumors of Amari Cooper trade. Are they true? So for those that haven't seen, this has been circulating. And again, it's NFL notifications. Amari Cooper for Brandon Ayuk may be an option for the Browns. Browns want to get younger. 49ers will keep only one of Deebo Samuel or Ayuk long term. They're thrilled with Ricky Pearsall. They took Pearsall out of Florida in the first round, just so everybody connect the dots of what that is saying. Do you think there's any truth to that? And again, 4 years younger, I believe, is what Ayuk is. I think he's just turned 26 in March. Do you think there's any truth to those rumors at all?
Right now I'm going to say no. I don't think so. I think it's speculation. I think when you have 2 receivers that are having contract issues, people do end up connecting the dots and thinking, hey, why don't you just change locations and everybody will be happy? But it's really not that simple. Brandon Ayuk, as we know, is going to command a contract somewhere in the $32, $33, $34 million a year range. And I just don't know if the Browns are prepared to pay that right now. They just paid Jerry Jeudy $17.5 million a year. They've got young other receivers that they really like that are coming up behind those guys. Cedric Tillman had a really, really nice mini camp and offseason. They still feel good about David Bell. So I don't know if they want to break the bank right now on a Brandon Ayuk, but I think you have to keep your mind open for whatever might happen, because if Amari draws a line in the sand and wants north of $30 million, then they're going to have to start thinking of some different options.
Right, and to this point, we haven't heard anything from Amari Cooper's agent or Amari Cooper. He just didn't show up to mandatory minicamp. There's nothing that you've heard from his side of things, is there?
No, I really haven't. So I really don't know. I mean, I saw him very, very briefly at David Njoku's celebrity softball game. He was in good spirits. He was out there playing third base. We greeted each other. I didn't even ask him if he was coming to mini camp in the next 3 days, because I just assumed that he was going to be there. It didn't occur to me that it had gotten to this point where he just would skip out on mandatory minicamp. So it's unfortunate because, you know, the Browns have to hit the ground running this year. They have such a grueling finish to the end of the season with those last 7 games that they have. They have to get off to a really strong start. And DeShaun Watson needs to get off to a strong start. And what a better way to do that than to have Amari Cooper on the field? You know that you're going to throw the ball in his direction and he's going to catch it. And he is just a safety valve for any quarterback and a number 1 receiver, a bona fide number 1 receiver. And I do think that he is worth those amounts that we discussed earlier. So I have not heard anything per se from Amari or his agent, but I just feel like there's a path forward for this, and I think they should be able to get something done.
So I know you did write an article, and we've talked about how they can resolve Amari Cooper's contract. What about DeShaun Watson's camp outlook? Yeah, that was part of that same article. Take us through that and just how important, you know, camp and then getting off to a good start is.
Well, the outlook is really great for DeShaun Watson. He looked fantastic in Browns minicamp. The arm looked really strong, really good, lots of zip on the ball. It went where he wanted it to. He showed no ill effects from the surgery. He had no setbacks. He wasn't touching the shoulder afterwards at all or anything like that. He looked really, really good. And I think the outlook for camp is very, very positive. I think by the time he shows up at the Greenbrier, I think he will be ready to do whatever he wants to do. Now, Dr. Neil Elatrosh, his surgeon, is probably going to put some parameters and some pitch counts on what he can do. But I think DeShaun is ready. If he had to go out and play a game tomorrow, I feel like he could do that. I think that's how far he is right now.
So the other thing that happened the last day of mandatory minicamp, which would have been Thursday, Myles Garrett tweaks his hamstring. Do you think that lingers into training camp at all? Is there concern about that?
Well, I guess I would have to say that I was mildly surprised to show up at Myles Garrett's youth football camp on Friday morning, the day after he suffered the little hamstring tweak or whatever he did to it on the final day of minicamp. And he had a full sleeve on the leg. And I was a little surprised to see that. Now, he was not walking with a limp. He wasn't showing any ill effects of having tweaked that hamstring. But to see him in a full sleeve was a little bit disconcerting. And I do have to wonder if it might not linger a little bit into training camp. But he will certainly get all kinds of treatment over the next 6 weeks. And he's got a great physical therapist who is also, it's his own private physical therapist. He was there at the camp on Friday, and they spent some time talking to each other. And so I think that he should be okay. If anything, maybe he will ramp it up a little bit in training camp and take it easy a little bit. But Myles is Myles. He's played through much worse than a tweaked hamstring, and he will be front and center on September 8th.
So the other thing that we know now is the dates have become official for Browns training camp and all training camps. So Browns rookies are due to report July 22nd, the veterans 23rd. Then they head down to the Greenbrier, where they're scheduled to be from the 25th through August 2nd. So again, the Greenbrier, everybody seemed to think that did wonders. And I think you're on the record as saying that as well. And they want to go back and get some of the same benefits again this year.
Yes, absolutely. They all talked about it as a remarkable bonding experience. They hung out with each other. They got to know each other better. They did some activities together when they weren't practicing football. They dined together. It was nice just to get away from campus, get off site in a beautiful, beautiful setting, try some different things, see some different things, get to know some different people on the team. And they absolutely, the minute they were done with that last year, knew they wanted to come back this year. And here we all go again.
So before we go to break, the Browns announced Phil Dawson, the legendary kicker, is going to be inducted into the Browns class of 2024 legends. Well deserved. Boy, for so many, I mean, think about it. There was such a long time where the kicker was the most popular guy on the team in Phil Dawson. So I'm thrilled for him. And you know, he was kicking when I was covering the team day in and day out. And great guy. And I know it will mean a lot to him and his wife.
Yeah, it really will. Most of Phil Dawson's fondest memories of the NFL, of course, are from his time here in Cleveland. He retired as a Cleveland Brown in 2019. Now he's going into this Legends class. We saw last year that he came back. He served as a dog pound captain. He smashed the guitar and had a grand old time doing all of that. He loves the Browns fans. He loves Cleveland. And I know this is a tremendous, tremendous honor for Phil, who was one of the best guys I've ever covered. Just really personable, just the embodiment of everything that you would want in a Cleveland Browns football player.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, someone from CBS Sports HQ who thinks DeShaun Watson is poised for a big season. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Moneymaker from the Ohio Lottery has no interest in beating around the bush. Money Maker. You play the game, you could win money. Up to $2 million. With more than $88 million in prizes from $50 to $500. Moneymaker cuts right to the cash. Unlike this guy.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. This is from Emery Hunt, CBS Sports HQ, the type of year he expects DeShaun Watson to have.
Yeah, from 2018 to 2020, this was an elite quarterback, and we forget DeShaun Watson as a passer was a big game hunter. And I love the saying, works touchdown to check down. Well, that aptly describes DeShaun Watson. And now you look at what he has around him in Cleveland, Amari Cooper. They bring in Jerry Jeudy. They draft Thrash out of Louisville. They still have Elijah Moore. They have Cedric Tillman, all of these big game hunter type weapons that can go deep down the field. And the last time we saw DeShaun Watson play, he put together a masterful performance against the Baltimore Ravens. So now he's fully healthy. He is ready to go. Third year in the system. I think we'll see him go over 18.5 touchdown passes. He'll get back to the DeShaun Watson that we saw in Houston, where he was throwing for 30 and 35 touchdown passes. He'll double up that number this year, in my opinion.
So, Mary Kay, he's thinking 35, 36, 37 touchdowns. That might be a little high, but okay. I honestly believe if DeShaun Watson plays 14, 15, 16, 17 games, the Browns are going to be in great shape.
They will be in great shape. And again, they do have a lot of weapons around him. I think that it will be tremendously helpful to him if Amari Cooper is one of those weapons. But I do think that he is capable of 26, 27, 28 touchdown passes this season. You want to keep the interceptions under 10 if you can. So maybe 9 interceptions or something like that. That's the kind of performance that they're looking for from DeShaun Watson. And I was pretty amazed at what I saw of him in Browns minicamp. The arm strength was off the charts. He did look like the DeShaun Watson of old. I was very surprised to see that after he had the surgery in November. And, I think it bodes well for the future. Again, we've said this many times. He has to be able to take a hit on that shoulder, not just a hit. He has to be able to withstand multiple blows to the shoulder, falling on it, getting beat up, and all those things that happen. But he's very tough. We've seen that before. There's no way that you could go out and win that Baltimore Ravens game on November 12th if you're not really tough. He did that on a high ankle sprain and a fractured shoulder. So if he can do that, you know that he's got plenty in store for this season.
The other thing that I liked hearing, works touchdown to check down. I think that kind of fits with Ken Dorsey's mindset as well. Downfield, and if it's not there, take some easy yards.
Well, they're going to have a lot of receivers and a tight end out in routes. So there will be plenty of opportunities for DeShaun to get the ball to the open man or the kind of open man. And he will do that. He will do that early and often. And that's what you're going to see from this offense. You're going to see some spread. You're going to see 3 wides, 4 wides. You're going to see an explosive offense. You're going to see the backs involved in the passing game a lot. And I really think that it's very well suited to DeShaun's skill set. And he also has the horses up front to protect him. And he is supported by a really good defense. So all the pieces are in place for him to be extremely successful this season.
So again, this is from one of your Hey Mary case. If DeShaun Watson struggles, what is the earliest scenario you could envision the Browns moving on from him?
I just don't think that that is in anyone's mental paradigm at this point. I don't think they're thinking like that at all. I think they're thinking long-term with DeShaun Watson. I think they just needed him to get some of these things out of the way, the suspension, then the injury. And I think now they're all hoping that it's going to be the arrow pointing up from here, an upwards trajectory, and that they will be challenging for Super Bowls. That's what they hope will happen. And I do believe that he can be the quarterback that he was in Houston. I do firmly believe that. It's really just a matter of getting out on the field, staying healthy, and putting it all together. But he certainly has the supporting cast to be able to do it. And I think he's poised for a good season.
So I'm curious as to your answer again. This is from another Hey Mary Kay. Who do you think gives the Browns the best chance to win as a play caller?
You know, I've said this a number of times, and I'm going to keep saying it, even though I might be in the minority, and I'm probably going to be wrong on this, but I think Kevin Stefanski should retain play calling duties. And when I look at this, I ask myself, would you give it to the more experienced guy who just is coming off AP NFL Coach of the Year, or the less experienced play caller who was fired from his previous job? Coach of the Year, fired from his previous job. It's the first opportunity for Kevin Stefanski to call a full season for DeShaun Watson. Why wouldn't you take that chance? Why wouldn't you take that opportunity to see if perhaps maybe you don't have a little bit of Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes in you? Okay, that's a bar set very high. I understand that. But why not? Kevin is always described by Andrew Berry and others as a brilliant play caller. And now you've got DeShaun Watson, who you can do so many things with. I, for one, would like to see what these two guys can do together over a full season. In the event at some point you want to turn it over to Ken Dorsey, certainly you can do that. But in the early going, I would not be giving it up.
So the other thing, again, another Hey Mary Kay. How much will Ken Dorsey's offense open up things for Browns receivers? Who do you think benefits the most?
I actually think all of the receivers benefit from this kind of an offense, but I think the ones that will probably benefit the most are the ones that can run the choice routes, those featured routes that they're going to run in this offense. And Jerry Jeudy is going to be the featured choice route runner. He's going to be the number one guy to do that. But Elijah Moore will also take on that role to a certain extent. So I think these kind of guys, your fast, twitchy receivers, are going to have an opportunity to excel in this offense, where you get great separation, and then you get really good run after the catch and those kinds of things. So I think those types of receivers will really be in vogue this season.
So I know you guys have done this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. You, Dan Lobby, Ashley Bastock. Who has momentum for the Browns after the off-season program? So going into camp, who kind of is headed up with the arrow pointing up, if you will?
Well, you know, there are a number of guys, and we did a whole podcast on this, and we threw out a lot of different names because we saw so many guys excel in the offseason program and in minicamp. But one of the first guys I can mention is Cedric Tillman. Without Amari Cooper there, he got plenty more reps than he would have, and he did a really, really nice job with all of those reps. I think he's taken a big step up from his first season and is somebody to watch in 2024. So he's somebody to keep an eye on for sure. And then I think also Elijah Moore. I think there's a lot more where that came from last season. So that should be good. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the defensive backs all looked really good. They, even on that last day, they were playing with their hair on fire, just breaking up pass after pass after pass in red zone drills. And those guys are poised for a really good season. And they're going to have to be because of all these amazing quarterbacks they're going to be playing.
So you wrote an article, Myles Garrett's plans to do more of everything in 2024 after that loss and winning the Defensive Player of the Year award for the first time in his career.
Yeah, Myles has been challenged by his new position coach, Jacques Césaire, to step it up even more in 2024. Just like Clyde Simmons before him, a couple of defensive line coaches back, they see more out of Myles. They see what he's capable of. They know that he is a generational talent, and they still want to pull more out of him. Last year, he won NFL Defensive Player of the Year with only 14 sacks. And in his final 9 games, he did not have a forced fumble. In his final 8 games, he did not have a fumble recovery. And I know he's capable of those big plays and more of them. He knows that about himself. His coaches know that about himself. And he plans to do all of that on the field. And then off the field, he does want to be more inspirational, more of a leader, more vocal, and all those kinds of things.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. On this side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about Nick Chubb, as well as how good the Browns offseason has been. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford.
Do that at the beginning of it.
Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Again, from NFL Network's The Insiders, talking about Nick Chubb and the whole situation with Chubb and his injury.
You know, I think first and foremost, when we look at any member of our organization, it's important for us not to lose sight of the fact that we're dealing with people. And what happened to Nick last year was very unfortunate. He had no desire to be anywhere besides Cleveland. We had no desire for that to be, the last snap that he would take in a Cleveland Browns jersey. And just quite honestly, he's the heartbeat and pulse of our team. He is a selfless individual. He works hard. He's obviously an outstanding ball carrier, an outstanding running back. And I said this at the end of my end of season press conference. I had coming into the year, I had a respect level for Nick Chubb. It was a 10 out of 10, and exiting the season, it was probably a 20 out of 10 because this was a person who came in every day, 5:30 a.m., doing his rehab modalities, working as if he was preparing for Sunday. And I think that says something, about him individually and as a professional. And, one of the moments that we're all most looking forward to is the first time he runs out of that home tunnel for his debut in the 2024 season. So we're really excited to have him back and can't wait to get going with him.
Mary Kay, do we not give enough credit to the Browns front office for how they have kind of changed the dynamic, the way they treat their – this is a place where players want to play. It will help in free agency. The way they've treated, Bill Callahan and Nick Chubb, and there is a message that gets sent around to coaches and players, free agents. This is a place people want to be.
Well, that's true. I think Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are both known for treating players and employees and coaches very, very well. And certainly in the case of Nick Chubb, they showed faith in him. They signed him back to a contract. And even Nick said they could have just cut me loose. So they signed him back. They gave him an opportunity to make back all of the money that he would have made this season. And, you know, a lot of teams probably would not have done that. So good for them for that. And yet it is also a deal that protects the club, because if he can't get out there and play a bunch of games for whatever reason, you know, they're not on the hook for all of that extra money. So it was kind of a win-win, but it still showed good faith, some humanity, some kindness, and they really let Nick know what he means to this football team.
So, again, this is one of your Hey Mary Kays. What's your current read of the running back room behind Nick Chubb? You know, knowing that he's got to get healthy before he can figure into that.
I think it's really good. I think that Jerome Ford looks better to me under Deuce Staley. I think Pierre Strong also looks better. I think Dante Foreman is sort of a new and improved version of a Kareem Hunt. He's got a little bit more spring in his step, a little bit quicker. And I think he can bring some of the same elements that Kareem did in terms of third down back, catching the ball out of the backfield, being a little bit more of your bruiser type of guy at times. So I think it's pretty good. And then you've got Nyheim Hines getting ready to come back from his torn ACL at some point, probably during training camp. We'll see him start to practice a little bit here and there. So it's a good, well-rounded room with varying skill sets. And then, of course, they are expecting Nick Chubb to be back at some point. Who knows? Maybe he'll surprise everyone and he will be out there for the opener against the Dallas Cowboys. We know we can't put anything past Nick Chubb. I think it's going to take probably a little bit longer than that, considering that he hasn't gotten out there and actually practiced with the team yet. That might happen at some point during training camp, but they're positioned very well to run the ball very well this season behind an excellent offensive line, a new running backs coach, and they will accomplish the running game very well.
So this is from ESPN.com, Seth Walder, grading every team's offseason. For the Browns, they say a B+. Biggest move, trading for Jerry Jeudy, signing him to a new contract. Moves that Seth Walder liked, the Jerry Jeudy trade. Moves he disliked, not trading for Justin Fields. They added Jameis Winston, Tyler Huntley as their backups. Could have aimed higher. While the Browns are heavily invested in DeShaun Watson, he's played poorly enough in Cleveland. Team ought to look for alternatives rather than run out the clock on a talented roster. Not trading for Fields was a misstep in my view. I don't know. I think by trading for Fields, you create drama that you just don't need. You've got Jameis Winston, you've got Tyler Huntley. Both of them have had some success making starts in the NFL.
Well, so much of this season was geared towards helping DeShaun live up to his potential, live up to his contract, live up to the draft capital that they spent on him. And I do have to wonder if Justin Fields would not have been a little bit too much of a distraction in the same way that Joe Flacco would have been. This is not about trying to have other people on the roster that can step in at any moment for DeShaun Watson and beat him out or anything like that. This is about DeShaun Watson being successful in a Cleveland Browns uniform, lasting throughout the whole season and reaching the potential the Browns feel that he has. So perhaps there was some of that involved. I don't really know about that, but maybe that could have been a factor. It certainly would have been interesting to see what Justin Fields can turn into, and I'm anxious to see what happens over there in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and the other thing is, again, it's trusting your evaluation of DeShaun Watson. You evaluated him to be a guy that could raise the bar. He hasn't been able to because he hasn't been able to be on the field.
Right, and now, now it's go time. It's an opportunity for him to really prove and show that he is the quarterback that the Browns spent all of that draft capital and money on, and for him to go out and live up to that and realize that potential and maximize his skill set, his dual threat skill set. It should be exciting. We've seen flashes of it here so far. Now it's time to see what he can do over the long haul.
Before I let you go, this is from the Bleacher Report. Every NFL team's biggest storyline to follow after 2024 OTAs and minicamp. For the Browns, questions on offense. 3 major questions surround Browns offense this summer workouts. Who will call plays? Then there's the conundrum at offensive tackle. Conklin, DeJuan Jones, Jedrick Wills, each have shown the ability to play at a high level. They're all coming off season-ending injuries. Last and most importantly, situation at quarterback. Watson remains presumed starter, but Browns have serviceable depth options. Those are probably fair questions. I think the three tackles, those guys can all be starting quality tackles in the NFL. Not many teams can say that.
No, and the fact that they're all coming off of knee surgeries, sometimes a little bit more is necessary. And by that, I mean, they've got three starters for two positions, and they might need all three of those guys to start games this season. We wouldn't be surprised about that. We watched them get down to their fourth and fifth tackles last season. So at some point, I'm sure you'll see all three of those guys in there. And I think it will take Jack Conklin a little while to get back onto the field. So they'll probably start the season with Jed on the left side, DeJuan on the right side, and then let Jack heal up a little bit.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the cleveland.com, as always. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Mary Kay.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Browns beat reporter, always great stuff. Cleveland.com, as well as the pages of the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside. We turn our attention to the Guardians when we return. Paul Hoynes, Guardians beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We turn our attention to the Cleveland Guardians, getting ready to open a 3-game series over at Progressive Field against the Seattle Mariners. Let's welcome in Paul Hoynes. He is the Guardians beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com. Hoynes, I know you wrote an article. Guardians 19 games over 500. Raise your hand if you had that on your bingo card here in the middle of June. It's a good thing because the schedule gets a little bit tougher.
Yeah, Dave, it's great to be 19, 20 games over 500. You know, I kind of relate to it as a before a bear goes into hibernation. You know, he eats as much as he can to get as fat as he can. Then he goes into the winter. You know, hibernates for the winter for that long sleep, and you know he uses all that fat. So when you get 20 games above 500, 19 games above 500, you know you can absorb a little bit of a losing streak without it changing your season.
Yeah, so, I mean, and you know what? Credit to the Guardians. They're beating the teams they should, but Mariners are in first place. You got the Blue Jays. The Orioles are coming up, and that's another team similar to the Guardians record-wise in the Royals. Along those lines, so this is MLB Power Rankings and every team's unsung hero. This one from The Athletic. So they have the Yankees 1, the Phillies 2, the Orioles 3, the Dodgers 4th, and they have the Guardians as the 5th best team in all of baseball, 3rd best in the American League behind the Yankees and the Orioles. Unsung hero, relief pitcher, righty Cade Smith, punched out 5 in his 2-inning debut back in March and is now rocking a 1.67 earned run average and a whip that is .866 for the first place Guardians. So whip refers to walks and hits per innings pitched, which means he's allowing .8 base runners per innings pitched, which, you know, that bullpen's been great, and they're going to need a bunch of guys if they're going to continue to be used like they have been.
Yeah, Cade Smith has just been a revelation, Dave. The thing that makes him so good, you know, Stephen Vogt was explaining this, you know, the guy is 6'5", and he has like a 7 foot extension. So when he lets the ball go, when his back foot is on the rubber, when he lets the ball go, he's 7 feet closer to home plate than if you're just standing on the rubber and throwing. So he's throwing 96 miles an hour, and the ball really gets up on hitters. He's just done a great job. A rookie that came out of that farm system, and he's filled in the 7th, 8th inning. Dave, I think this guy could close as well.
Yeah, you make a very good point. That's not something you can adjust to in an at-bat. Ball gets on you that quick, and you're not asking him to go through the lineup a second time. So he's got to advantage Cade Smith with the extension there.
Yeah, just he's a dynamite reliever, and then you follow that up by the monster Emmanuel Clase, and that is a 1-2 punch that is very, very dangerous. You just think when you go back to spring training, they lose Trevor Stephan, who was an excellent setup man for Clase, and all of a sudden they find Cade Smith, and he kind of steps into that role.
So another guy that just keeps producing is Stephen Kwan. This one is from Forbes. So last 8 games, Guardians bat-to-ball wizard Stephen Kwan is hitting .563. That's like a T-ball number. 18 for 32. That is upped his American League leading batting average to .398. He doesn't appear in the leaders, doesn't have enough at-bats. He'll get there, though. But that is 71 points higher than any other hitter in either league. Hoynes, what have you seen from Kwan? I mean, you watch him, and it's like he was really good a couple of years ago. He's even better than that. He regressed a little bit, but everything got corrected.
Yeah, Dave, just for him to come back after missing 4 weeks, with the hamstring injury, and come back and kind of pick up right where he left off, and maybe even be better. I mean, he's coming off like an 8 for 13 series against Toronto over the weekend. On Sunday, he got 4 hits. I mean, this guy he's on fire. He's, you look at him at the plate, and he's really relaxed. He's got the great mindset for a leadoff hitter. He doesn't try to do too much. He's not trying to get, hit the ball out of the park. When he gets down in the count, he's almost impossible to strike out. He's going to make contact. He really kind of sets that whole offense in motion.
And he's got the type of swing that it isn't long. There's not a lot to it. So in theory, it stays the way he wants it to because it's so short and compact.
Yeah, and he hits the ball to all fields. He can pull the ball to right field. He can drop it into left field. He can hit the ball down the lines. And he's still got, they've impressed on him, take a chance early in the count. Take a chance to impact the baseball, to try and hit it out of the park. If you foul it off or you swing and miss, you still got that great 2-strike approach that you can fall back on.
So we're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. This is Danielle. I got a call about the Guardians. They're totally rocking. I'm so proud of our baseball team and our new skipper. And also with Jose Ramirez going to be welcoming his first child son, I believe. And also for Stephen Kwan. I mean, it's just great. He's batting .535. I mean, that's nuts. I mean, I love it. So go Guards. What do you guys think? What do you guys think that we need?
So relative to what Danielle's referring to, she had gone on to ask about a starting pitcher or a power hitter. So let's take a look at the starting rotation, Hoynesy. It's McKenzie, Bybee, Allen, Carrasco, and Lively. And then when you look out at the lineup, normally it would be Kwan in left, Freeman in center, Brennan in right. Then it's Ramirez, Rocchio, Jimenez, Naylor third to first, Bo Naylor catching, and David Fry at the DH. So I guess the answer is, do you want a pitcher or a starting pitcher or a power hitter? The answer would be yes.
Yes, exactly. I think that would be yes for probably all 30 teams in the big leagues. But, I think right now, Dave, I think they need a starter. I mean, I really think they need a starting pitcher. I think they'll look at their internal options first. Gavin Williams, Joey Cantillo, Xavier Curry. If not, they'll try to go outside and add a starter, maybe another bullpen guy to thicken that bullpen up, because you just, as good as this bullpen has been, your rotation just can't keep going 5 innings, and then you need 4 or 5 starters. I mean, relievers to get through the next, the last 4 innings. It's a recipe for disaster in the second half, in my opinion. I think they need some more. They need one more arm in that rotation to give them some length to take the burden off the off the bullpen.
Yeah, and to your point, we went last time you were on last week. We talked about the quality starts, and the Guardians are among the lowest in the league in quality starts. That's 6 innings with 3 runs or less. So that bullpen, they've been great, but you're asking an awful lot from them. I know you one of your Hoynesies. Do you think the Guardians made a mistake in trading Quantrill?
It's
It's
I guess,
hindsight.
Hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
And then Quantrill's pitching well in a tough place to pitch at Coors Field. But when you look at from the Guardians' perspective, this guy was 4-7 yet last year. He was on the DIL twice with shoulder injuries, and they made a financial decision. And Chris Antonetti said it was about money. They thought Quantrill was set to make 6.7 million in arbitration. They felt that they could spend that better elsewhere on the roster. And, that's the way it worked out. But right now, Quantrill would certainly look good in that rotation because he was an innings eater. He always answered the bill as long as he was healthy, and they missed that.
Yeah, this front office has been really good. You look at it, and it appears, and I don't have any inside knowledge, it appears they decided Ramon Laureano at $5 million was a better deal than Cal Quantrill at $6.5 million, and Laureano was picked up by the Braves after the Guardians DFA'd him, so he's playing right field for the Braves these days.
And Scott Barlow was involved in that too.
Yeah.
They couldn't have gotten Scott Barlow, who's been a big part of the pen, unless they they made the move, or they traded Quantrill.
And in fairness, there was some uncertainty with the whole TV rights. That plays a large factor. I think in hindsight, if they'd have known they were going to draw like they did and the TV would have sorted it out, I don't know that they would have let Quantrill get away.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't put those two together.
All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason one more time.
Hey, Dave, Frank from Cleveland. Touch base on a couple of things, one about the Browns, one about the Guardians. Amari Cooper, just pay the man. He earned it. Pay him. Number 2, about the Guardians. I like the kid from University of Florida, the 6'5", first baseman, two-way guy. Tell me what you think, bro. Love you. Be safe. Great shows as always, and I'll be in touch. You and the family. Be good. Love you, brother.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Caglione is one of those guys that's projected as a top 5 guy. Didn't pitch well in the College World Series. Looked like might have had a sore left arm. Is a big-time power hitter. The one thing is he only projects as a first baseman. So I like him. I like Charlie Condon more, and I think the Guardians like Travis Bazzana even more, the second baseman from Oregon State.
Yeah, I think it's Condon and Bassani, from Oregon State. I think those are the two guys they're looking at really close. I wouldn't be surprised if they slip the pitcher in there, but I don't think it's going to be Caglione. I think they look at Caglione mostly as a hitter.
Yep.
Dave, I don't know if he would be a two-way guy in the big leagues or in the pros.
No, everything that I've seen projects him as a power hitter. And if you watched him in the regionals and in the College World Series, he can hit. I like Condon a little better. All right, before I let you go, gut feeling. Do you think the Guardians make a trade either before or moving up to the trade deadline? And what do you think they go get?
Yeah, I think they do make a trade. They have their track record says they'll make a trade. As long as they stay on, if they're still leading the division, if they're 20 games over 500 and they've got a substantial lead in the Central, I think, they've always shown they'll try to make the team better. They'll make a deal. I think they'll go out and get a starting pitcher.
Paul?
I mean, that's a hard guy to get. but that's who I think they'll get.
Well, and the thing that, I would caution fans, everybody's going to be trying to get a starting pitcher. And right now, the Orioles farm system, they've got 4 guys on IL with Tommy John that were in their starting rotation at the beginning of the year. They're going to need a starting pitcher, and their farm system is loaded with top prospects. Yeah. So those are the type of competitions that the Guardians are having to try to go get a starting pitcher.
And, they do things like incrementally, Dave. So maybe if they don't get a starter, maybe they get another reliever. Maybe they get another bat somewhere. But, I do think they'll make a move.
Paul Hoynes, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Hoynesy.
Thank you.
Paul Hoynes, make sure you check him out. Pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Always great Guardians coverage. He is the Guardians beat reporter for Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter from Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Straight ahead, we're talking Cavs, Donovan Mitchell, and the coaching search. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back.
Moneymaker from the Ohio Lottery has no interest in beating around the bush. Money Maker. You play the game, you could win money. Up to $2 million. With more than $88 million in prizes from $50 to $500. Moneymaker cuts right to the cash. Unlike this guy.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers here on Sports4CLE. The question is, Donovan Mitchell, will he sign the extension? We're not sure yet. Take a look at this. Donovan Mitchell recently posted this on his Instagram. It's him hugging Jared Allen on the court down at, looks like it's Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, but Donovan Mitchell posting that. Let's welcome in Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. So the Cavs could begin contract talks with their players, Donovan Mitchell, when the finals concluded last night, the NBA Finals. Have you heard anything relative to that extension yet, Chris?
No, nothing on that front, Dave. I don't think it's going to be a complicated process. It's not a situation similar to the one that the Knicks are going to deal with OG Anunoby. When it comes to Anunoby, right, there's a little bit of a debate about how much to pay him in a long-term extension, and you're trying to figure out what is his financial value. When it comes to Donovan Mitchell, it's pretty straightforward. The Cavs are going to make an offer of 4 years around $200 million, and it's all about, to me, is there going to be an opt-out in the 4th year? Is there going to be different parameters within the contract that Donovan is comfortable with, that the Cavs are comfortable with? Is it going to be 3 years? Is it going to be 4 years? Those kinds of things. That's to me what the Cavs have to work out with Donovan. It's not how much is he going to make in this contract, because he is one of the best players in the NBA. He's eligible for a certain kind of contract, and there's nobody in the NBA that would give him anything other than that contract.
And it sounds more and more like he's going to take that contract, is from everything we're hearing. Is that accurate enough?
Yeah, that's the sense that I get. And look, Donovan has been saying to everybody that was willing to listen that he is happy in Cleveland, that this is a place where he believes he can win. And I do believe that the Cavs making the move to go away from JB Bickerstaff has increased the likelihood of Donovan signing long-term. I also understand that for Donovan, this is an opportunity for him to get some financial security. This is an opportunity for him to get the kind of contract that he has earned. And if he feels like down the road that the organization is not making steps in the right direction, they're not giving him an opportunity to play in the conference finals and the NBA finals, which is ultimately what he wants out of his career, then he could always request a trade. He could always try and get out of that contract. So even if he does sign long-term this offseason with the Cavs, it doesn't mean that that's where he's going to finish his career or he's going to play out the contract that he signs. This is a players' league, Dave. It has been a players' league for a number of years. They have the power. And during this era, You see guys request trades after signing one extension all the time. So I think Donovan understands that there are a lot of different factors in play when it comes to this extension, and there are a lot of benefits for him being here in Cleveland. He's been involved in this coaching search. He's going to be involved when it comes to the roster decision-making that the Cavs are going to go down the road of this offseason. All of those things are going to appeal to a player. And if he goes somewhere else other than Cleveland, is he going to get those same things? I don't know. It's fair to wonder about that. So it does feel like this is just a matter of what is the contract going to look like for Donovan? How many years? Is there going to be a player option? But it does feel like this is the place where he wants to be and where he believes is a good basketball related situation. The other thing is, anytime that you're a player and you turn down a contract extension, there is an opportunity for the organization to just trade you. And the minute, if that were to happen, the minute that Donovan allows that to happen, he loses some of his power, he loses some of his leverage, and he loses the ability to basically pick his basketball situation. And there is a real chance that if he would turn down a long-term contract extension, the Cavs would trade him into a situation that isn't as good as this one that he has right now in Cleveland, a team that came off an Eastern Conference semifinals appearance and a team that actually beat Boston in one of the games.
So we've also heard the reports that if Mitchell signs a long-term extension, Darius Garland and his representation would ask for a trade. Do you believe that? Is that legitimate, or what are you hearing relative to that?
I do believe that is real, but just because a player or a player's camp wants a player out doesn't mean that the Cavs have to actually go through with that. They could sit there and they could say, hey, sorry, we're not going to get the kind of value in return for Darius that makes sense for us to go that direction. I totally understand why you may want that to happen, but it doesn't make sense for us to do that. I've also gotten the sense in talking to a lot of people inside the organization and outside the organization that Darius wasn't thrilled with that getting out there, and it's not necessarily coming from Darius. It's coming from people around Darius. And I totally understand where they're coming from, Dave. Like, Darius was the guy who was the face of this franchise before Donovan Mitchell got here. He was the guy who was trying to get his own signature shoe from New Balance before Donovan got here. He was the guy who the offense ran through before Donovan got here. He was the guy who got the biggest contract in franchise history before Donovan got here. With Donovan here, he doesn't have those same opportunities. With Donovan here, he's not going to be looked at the same kind of way. And his people are always going to look at what's best for Darius, what's going to allow him to make the most money, what's going to make him most marketable, what's going to boost his resume, what's going to give him an opportunity to win. All those different factors, many of them have disappeared now that Donovan is here, now that Donovan is the alpha. Obviously, this is an opportunity for Darius to win. He's been to back-to-back playoffs. But his people are looking at a situation saying, well, I could go somewhere else, still have an opportunity to win, and get those other opportunities off the court that matter when it comes to negotiating another contract down the road. Because that's how agents and representatives are supposed to operate. They're supposed to think that far in advance. But the other thing that comes into play here is, like I said, the value that the Cavs would get back in return for Darius. And if it's not something that is going to enhance their chances of taking another step forward as an organization, Darius is under contract. They gave him a big contract. They rewarded him handsomely. And it's his responsibility as a player to play out that contract for as long as he's here.
So the Celtics won the NBA championship yesterday, 4-1. I bring that up because I want you to take a look at this. This is from a couple of years ago. It might have even been just last year. Time to break up the duo of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum because they just don't fit together. Time for a change. they don't complement each other. Those are all the same things that you're hearing. Is it fair to draw the same kind of parallels? Fit is it's a fluid thing, especially with backcourt guys that can play the game and can move and have the ball in their hands.
It's a column that I'm actually writing for tomorrow for cleveland.com. I think the Cavs have to pay attention to this Boston championship win. I think the Cavs had to pay attention to the Denver Nuggets winning the championship last year, Dave. All of that points to team building. All of that points to a patient approach by an organization. The Celtics have made so many different changes around their roster over the last decade. But you know the two constants? Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Despite that being the pairing that everybody said wasn't going to work, despite everybody saying that they were going to be better off apart, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum determined that they were going to be at their most formidable, their most powerful together. And the Boston Celtics determined that, hey, we can change the coach, we can change the point guard, we can change the other pieces, but we cannot change those two guys, because when you have two high-level players like that are capable of that, it's very, very risky to break them up. So let's see if we can find somebody that can get the most out of them. Let's see if those two guys can continue to evolve as players individually and from a team perspective as well. And now look at them. They're the best team in the NBA. They're going to be the favorites going into next year. They're probably going to be the favorites the year beyond for as long as they're together, and as long as they have Joe Mazzulla as the coach, and as long as they have the opportunity to continue to improve the roster. So I do think that it's informative for the Cavs. And I do think that they have to be really, really cautious about the decisions that they make when it comes to offloading high-level talent, because there's no guarantee that the talent that you get back, if you do push that button, is better than what you have, or is going to be a better fit than what you have. And for all the things that you want to say about Darius and Donovan, and the fact that, it can be a wonky fit at times and they have overlapping skill sets, the numbers say that they are better together than they are apart. The numbers say that the Cavs are better with both of them together than they are when they are apart. And I think you have to give a little bit of a runway for Darius Garland to bounce back from the bad season that he had. I think you have to give a little bit of a runway for Darius and Donovan to try and evolve as players and see if they can figure it out together. Look, if the Cavs get an opportunity that is going to clearly make the roster better and make the fit, the quote unquote fit better, they have to explore that and they have to consider that, right? But there's no guarantee that the offer that they get for Darius or even Jarrett Allen, if you want to go down that road, is going to make them a better basketball team. And you just have to be really, really careful about giving up on high-level talent. And that's something that the Celtics avoided, despite all of the calls for them to break up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And look at them now.
Oh, yeah, we had a bunch of – we could have chosen from about 15 or 20 tweets similar to that one. All right. We know the Cavs have talked to a number of head coaching candidates. Do you have a sense where they are in the process of hiring one? We've heard James Borrego. You've heard Kenny Atkinson is kind of the leader. Are those accurate, or are those guys that are highly thought of, you think?
I actually think James Borrego is the leader in the clubhouse. That's the sense that I get from my sources. I'm also told that the Cavs are looking at the possibility of interviewing one or two more candidates before making an actual decision when it comes to this. It's been more than a month since the Cavs moved on from JB Bickerstaff. It's been a wide-ranging, extensive search. That's what it was the last time the Cavs embarked on this thing about 5 years ago. It led them to John Beilein. That was a terrible decision that they made, but they recovered from it thanks to JB Bickerstaff. In saying that, I do believe that the Cavs are comfortable with the candidates that they've interviewed. They've moved on to the in-person interviews, which are really, really important during this process. They've had some guys that they've talked to over Zoom. I'm told that the number of candidates that they had conversations with is close to double digits. But everything that I continue to hear, Dave, is that James Borrego is somebody who impressed them in their interviews. There are 2 interviews with him, one over Zoom and one in person. He does fit the parameters of the offensive mind that they're looking for to kind of get the most out of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell together and try and improve this offense to a level where it's better than what it was in the last 2 playoffs. And James Borrego has so many different ties because of his 1 year in New Orleans with people that the Cavs really, really trust. So the kind of feedback that they're getting, number one, has been flattering. But number 2, it's coming from guys that the Cavs have close connections to. So they believe it more, right? It's not as much BS. David Griffin is the mentor to Kobe Altman. Larry Nance Jr. played for James Borrego, so they can get a player's perspective because Larry Nance Jr. was a Cav, and he still has close ties to various members in this organization. And there was also somebody in the Cavs front office a few years ago that when he left Cleveland, he went to New Orleans and he was on the coaching staff with James Borrego, and they've reached out to him as well. So all of those kinds of ties and the information that the Cavs are getting, it's a different kind of information. It's a different kind of confidence that you have in that feedback because of those relationships.
Chris Fedor, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Chris.
You got it, Dave. Anytime, man.
Chris Fedor, make sure you check him out. Anything you want to know about the Cavs, Donovan Mitchell coaching search, check him out. Cleveland.com, as well as the pages of the Plain Dealer. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.